For an equipment reference, I am watching all of my movies either on my dedicated 4K Blu-ray player in my bedroom on a 55-inch Samsung 8000 series 4K TV, and in my rec room on the Xbox One S Blu-ray player, watching those on a 65-inch Samsung 8000 series 4K TV. Just to let you know how I'm watching these movies.
Hold on, you mean to tell me that they got all of the MCU on 4K, completely, fully, ready to go? Oh yeah, sign me up.
For me, it was Tuesday.
Welcome to another episode of For Me, It Was Tuesday. I'm your host, GQ. So of course, today we are going to be talking about the MCU, and we're going to break it up into multiple parts because that's about the only way we're going to do it. You got 23 films to cover. That's a lot. I'm not doing it all at once. So let's get to it. We're going to do Marvel's MCU Phase 1 right now. So, obviously, Marvel started off with Paramount as their partner distributor for these particular films. And we start with this one right here, Iron Man 2008, Robert Downey Jr. Obadiah Stane was, of course, played by the awesome Jeff Bridges, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Jon Favreau not only sitting in the director's chair, but also played Happy Hogan, and of course, Terrence Howard as James Rhodes. The film was amazing. Took the world by storm. Nobody expected it to be as good as it was. Robert Downey Jr. killed it as Tony Stark. It's one of those situations where perfect casting is in the sense of the lead role. I mean, who else, just rack your brain right now. Who else could be Tony Stark but Robert Downey Jr.? Who else? You can't do it. It's impossible to replace that man as that character. So he did an amazing job, knocked it out of the park, made a character that a lot of people weren't even really all that interested in at the time, made him a household name. First off, the film was amazing. Starting with his history, they of course updated it. It wasn't Vietnam that he got injured in. It was more of the Gulf War, Desert Storm type of situation, Afghanistan type thing. It was more, more modernized, obviously, and I have zero problems with that. You gotta, keep the stories fresh. You gotta modernize them. You gotta make it, work with what's going on in the world today. So, I mean, at the time, we were in the middle of, obviously the conflict in the Middle East and that sort of thing. So he's in the war zone over there, and that's how he got injured. So it worked. They did a great job with it. The 4K transfer of the film, outstanding. There's not really much more you can say about that. I mean, they did a really good job transferring it. The effects hold up. The suit up scenes are still as amazing as as I remember them to be. Of course, a lot of these, the silver suit, this Mark II that I of course did review in a unboxing. So make sure you check that out. But that particular suit was, for that spiral shot, that of course was if I remember correctly, it's a computer generated suit. But a lot of other times he was wearing practical suits. So that's why, of course, it holds up. I mean, if you've got something on set, it was on set. You're not worried about your effects being dated. And 2008 wasn't really that long ago. I mean, it's, 12 years, but still, wasn't that long ago. So Iron Man, amazing film. The transfer was great. The Iron Man, of course, the Blu-ray, it had, some behind the scenes work, the usual standard stuff, commentary by director Jon Favreau. So that's awesome. Moving on, The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton, Liv Tyler, Tim Roth, and of course, William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross. The Incredible Hulk, of course, was distributed by Universal, which, again, the fact that Phase 1 was distributed by two major studios and they still in the box set all those films live together, that in and of itself is just crazy just to even think about. But the Hulk film with Ed Norton, I did enjoy it. A lot of people say Ed Norton should have been the one that carried on and there was the creative differences and all that. I liked his Bruce Banner and his Hulk, but Mark Ruffalo for me plays it extremely well. It's just something about the way Ruffalo does it and it just works. Ed Norton played a very, very good Bruce Banner in this film, though. I will not take that away from him. And that one girl that played Martina, who was his, I guess, neighbor underneath him in his the apartment that he lived at in the beginning of the film, that girl is amazing. And I would like to see her in more stuff. Matter of fact, if she's watching this right now, you go right ahead, leave a comment, and get at me, because wow. Moving on beyond that, though, the film itself was great, all kidding aside. Well, actually, I'm not even kidding. Girl, you are amazing. period. Moving forward though, honestly, that film was fun. The scenes with the Hulk, again, it's I'm going to throw all the shade in the world at Ang Lee's Hulk from some years before, I think 2004, maybe in 2002 or 3. I don't want to wait an hour and a half to see the Hulk in a movie called Hulk. In this film, we get our first sighting of the Hulk about 20 minutes in, and it was an awesome scene, and the build of it was so perfect because the scene just gets more and more intense and you just hear his heart beating, and he's got the heart monitor trying to make sure that, his heart rate doesn't get too high, and he transforms. You have everything just layering on top of that, like the guys that he was getting into a fight with at the factory, chasing after him. The army is chasing after him. And then you get to the point where they corner him and they're, laying into him, trying to beat him down, intimidating him and all that other sort of thing. And just things just layer and layer and layer, and finally he snaps and transforms, and it just worked. It was so well done. So, and I give all the props in the world to Louis Leterrier, the director. Did an amazing job on that film. Seeing Tim Roth's character playing Emil Blonsky coming in to be essentially transformed into the Abomination. That was awesome. I mean, he did an amazing job. And that fight that they had in quote unquote Harlem, I believe was filmed in Canada. That was awesome. They did a great job. The funny thing is, out of all the films, The Incredible Hulk was one of the first ones that was transferred to 4K first. Just to put it into perspective, the first 4K release in the MCU officially, when they were just being brought out, was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That was the first film that actually got a 4K release. So what they of course started doing at that point, everything moving forward after that got 4K releases. But of course Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was in the middle of phase 3. So they started kind of retroactively going back and re-releasing the film. So that, of course, is why I say that we finally got all of the MCU in 4K releases. But we're going to move past Hulk. We're going to move on to Iron Man 2. Now, a lot of people, they got a bone to pick with Iron Man 2, and that's fine. I get it. Of course, Terrence Howard as Rhodey is out. We get Don Cheadle, amazing actor, very, very cool guy on Twitter, actually. Megan Sean got into a back and forth with him about how black actors are portrayed in the MCU, and I will just, whatever, it was what it was, and that was, a very funny conversation that they had back and forth, but that's beside the point. Of course, we also got Mickey Rourke playing Whiplash. A lot of people say he phoned it in. The one thing I will definitely say is he literally left the Iron Man 2 set, and went right over and filmed his scene in Expendables, because the characters are identical basically as far as the look, and that's fine, it is what it is. I liked his character though. I liked that we were seeing essentially a dark Tony Stark, a reverse Tony Stark. The guy was brilliant, he was a genius, but Tony was fueled essentially by the need to make himself better, the need to take his weapons off the market basically and stop harming people, stop making weapons of death and destruction and protect people. Anton Vanko, the character that Mickey Rourke plays, the exact opposite. He is fueled by the need to get revenge on Stark and everything that the Stark name represents. So of course he has blueprints of the arc reactor, builds his own version of it, and goes out and attacks Tony at a race in Monaco, and that is where the 4K transfer has some issues. Again, it's not so much that the sequence wasn't cool, it's just that part when the cars crash and explode behind him. 4K resolution betrays how, I almost want to just say rushed that effect was. It looks, for lack of a better term, it looks bad. I'm just going to say that. But again, it's only on screen for like a split second or whatever. A lot of people didn't like this film for various reasons. Of course, some people said that Jeff Bridges' Ironmonger was, obviously a reverse Iron Man essentially, and of course Whiplash ends up in the end of the film with, a big iron, armored version of his original suit that he, started off with. So yeah, you kind of run into that same issue there. And that happens a lot with films. I think sometimes with filmmakers, they're so busy telling a particular story they forget that, hey, you got to end the movie somehow. And sometimes you just run into doing the same ending again. Jon Favreau again directed this particular film. and of course did double duty playing Happy Hogan again, and he is part of one of the sexiest entrances in the MCU, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, phenomenal. She looks great in this film. The red hair looks really good on her. Her eyes actually, I think, were I don't know if they highlighted them or did something to her eyes, but they look even more green in this. It was just, the woman looked amazing in this film. And yes, I'm fanboying about how she looks, and I don't care, whatever, she's attractive, period, bar none. So Black Widow did, her as Black Widow, amazing job in this film. Moving forward, one of my favorite scenes, of course, is the whole situation with Iron Man and War Machine just standing there. They showed it in the trailer. They showed it, obviously, and that was one of those moments you're just waiting for. And I think it was Genndy Tartakovsky. I'm probably butchering his name, but the guy that did Samurai Jack and also Powerpuff Girls storyboarded and kind of essentially choreographed this sequence. And you could tell because it felt like an anime fight. It was just really, really well done. War Machine and Iron Man just wrecking all those drones. Love that sequence, and that's one sequence that in 4K looks amazing. It looks great, it holds up, perfect, love it. Also, Iron Man 2 is the first film in the MCU to introduce the quote-unquote, actually not even quote-unquote, that's what they're called, Marvel one-shots. The first Marvel one-shot, of course, is The Consultant, and essentially it kind of tells the little bit of small backstory that they have between Agent Sitwell and Agent Coulson, trying to figure out who is going to go to General Ross and basically get it so they don't put Abomination on the Avengers squad, because that is supposedly was what was supposed to happen. They come back and forth to throw around different ideas. Hey, let's send in Tony Stark, who is, of course, the consultant to the Avengers squad. And that's where we get the after credit scene that you see in Hulk. Moving on to Thor. Directed by Kenneth Branagh, obviously starring Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Anthony Hopkins, Rene Russo, and Tom Hiddleston. This film, say what you will about Thor being, Thor Ragnarok, again, great reboot for the franchise, without a doubt. But here's the one thing. You have to have the foundation of what the character was like from the books, and Chris Hemsworth kills it. Full disclosure, I never personally liked Thor as a character from the Marvel comics. Never read his books that much, didn't get into them, knew of the character, just didn't really care. When Hemsworth got in that role, he embodied that character, and it was just like, dude, this guy is good, and he's actually making Thor interesting. Okay, cool, I'm in, let me see some more. This film does it, and of course Loki. Enough can't even be said about Tom Hiddleston's performance. He originally went in to audition for Thor, didn't get it of course, but he got Loki, and good God, he plays that character to a T. He's so good at that, and it just works. And obviously you got Anthony Hopkins as Odin. What more need be said? Anthony Hopkins, that's all you need to know. Great performance, period. Simple as that, moving on. Thor was a fun movie, very straightforward, very streamlined, just introduce the character, let people know what's up, bring it up to speed. And it worked, it was cool. And I liked how Chris Hemsworth played the character. You notice his transition. If you watch all three Thor movies back to back, and I know a lot of people are like, I can't sit through Dark World again, and that's fine. But if you watch how his character progresses and changes throughout those three films, it is awesome to see. And I will definitely give Chris Hemsworth his props on that. Moving on, Captain America: The First Avenger, starring, of course, Chris Evans, Tommy Lee Jones, Hugo Weaving, and another crush, Haley Atwell. Woman, you are sexy, period. You look so good as Agent Carter in these films. If you're watching, get at me. Captain America: The First Avenger, very, very good film. Again, another character, full disclosure, I did not like. Didn't care about him. He was another Boy Scout just like Superman. I didn't care. But you get Chris Evans in the role. The dude caught my attention originally in the non-MCU film Fantastic Four. Yes, that movie wasn't that good, but his Human Torch caught my attention. It's like, this guy he's fun, he's good, he kind of gets it. He also played a really cool character in that movie, The Losers. He always plays characters that just kind of catch my attention. So when he played Captain America, it was like, oh yeah, that fits. This dude's, he's good. It just worked. And his Captain America was great. Sebastian Stan playing, of course, Bucky Barnes, his friend who dies, and gives him motivation to just go after Hydra and get it all over with, you know, wipe him off the map sort of thing. Awesome. Tommy Lee Jones as the Colonel Phillips, freaking hilarious and phenomenal. Tommy Lee Jones, again, just like Anthony Hopkins. You put Tommy Lee Jones in a film, you got my attention. You're good to go. So Captain America, the First Avenger, the 4K transfer, that was one of the earlier ones that actually got a 4K transfer. I think that and the Captain America trilogy, I think, was one of the first older films to get the 4K transfer. And First Avenger looks great in 4K. And Haley Atwell, my goodness, woman, you look amazing. Moving on. The one that started it all, 2012, the one that made us all believe that this thing was going to work, The Avengers. Joss Whedon, he did his thing. Brought together, introduced Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner / the Hulk. It worked. Nick Fury, Sam Jackson, of course, has been Nick Fury. And also Agent Coulson, Clark Gregg as Agent Coulson, who made little cameos and appearances throughout all of these different films. Outstanding. The guy is gold. And I love that they used his character's death, at least for what we saw before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. existed, as the catalyst to bring the team together, because they all in some form or another knew him. And just like, look, this guy's just, he believes in us. We got to make good on it. And obviously we all know Avengers. We know how everybody's got their story about what they were doing when they saw that film and how they felt when they first saw that film. And for me, it was like, dude, they're doing it, and it's amazing that they did it, and the fact that it just looks just good is just like, wow. So I will give them all the props in the world for what they did with Avengers, and that's really all I got to say about that. All of these films, of course, the 4K transfer is the highlight of the show, so to speak. If you've got their Blu-ray releases before, all the extras are kind of basically the same. I mean, like, for example, Thor has like 11 deleted scenes. Iron Man 2 has got like the little database and then the pop-up, you know, sections that you can hit during the film. So all of that stuff is still included. And of course, you got your digital copies and all that good stuff. So, you know what? Not gonna belabor it too much. Phase 1 was amazing, but it also represents the last time that Paramount was involved. I'll leave you these final words. For you out there that were sitting in the theaters in 2008, never thought it was gonna get this far when Iron Man came out. Never thought it was gonna be this big. But for me, I kind of saw it. I'm a little bit of a visionary. So just seeing all these films on 4K, for you guys, that was probably the best day in your life. For me,
It was Tuesday.
I'll see you guys next time.